All right. So, welcome to the Character Art Podcast, episode number 4, with myself, Gavin Goulden, Jon Troy Nickel, and our very special guest, Jacque Choi. How's it going, guys?
Pretty good. How's it going with you?
Not bad.
Yeah,
I think I'm
yeah, awesome.
slightly more awake than John right now.
Yeah, yeah, it's fucking may as well be the crack of dawn over here, man.
Yeah, dude, you're up bright and early at 11 a.m.
Yeah, yeah,
Ah,
yeah, that's
fuck,
it.
the sun's rising, the rooster's screaming at you, get the
Yeah,
eggs frying.
the sun's already kind of like hiding behind the hill. It's like
Yeah,
afternoon almost.
yeah, yeah. All
Ah,
right, cool. Well, just to get started, Jacques, do you want to kind of introduce yourself and go over your very long
Oh
history
boy.
that you have in the industry?
Sure. Geez. Where do I begin?
yeah,
Um,
Let's
yeah,
just,
exactly.
okay, I'm gonna start way before I even entered the games industry. Kind of growing up, I was always like a drawing for hundreds of hours a month at least. I've just been I always envisioned I'd become a comic book artist of some kind, and I kind of ended up just pursuing that dream until the comic book industry, I guess, died around the mid '90s, and then I thought I'd become an animator at Disney, and then then I guess classical animation kind of died, and it was around that time where I kind of stumbled upon 3D, and luckily I was going to one of the two schools in Canada that were offering it in the mid '90s, which was Emily Carr. The other, I believe, was Sheridan.
Mhm.
And yeah, so I just went to that school. I learned 3D, and I just kind of like I don't have like an awesome origin story like Josh Singh did, or I just I went into the 3D program and I got a job after. Like I was always
Yeah, yeah.
one of the top students, and so it wasn't really a big thing to get a job for me. I would say, and not as a point of bragging, but it just seemed to anybody that had kind of uh, I believe like Disney just went to Sheridan and hired an entire grad class one year.
Oh yeah.
It was those days of like the mid '90s to like the early 2000s. So
Yeah, man. I remember Sheridan being like the almost like the farm team for Disney at the time, anyway.
yeah,
Um,
Sheridan and Cal Arts, and there's quite a few. This is before there was Vancouver Film School, before there was like any other established schools around the time. So
yeah, totally. So did you have like an interest in games and stuff, or was it always like comics and then
no,
3D just kind of?
oh no, dude, I loved games like crazy. I just didn't realize that 3D was even a like I guess it was kind of the time of like PS1 era was when I kind of realized, okay, well they're actually doing stuff with this 3D thing because back then I just thought it was Toy Story.
Hmm.
And
Mm.
then I think when I graduated, that's a year before the PS2 came out. It's back in 2000. So
Hmm.
that was like a while ago, right? So, but the funny thing is because I was always like pretty good. I joined a company called Helicon Technologies, I guess, with our former coworker Patrick,
Hmm.
Marcus, and Edwin, and all those other guys, Roy.
Yeah, dude, that's the crazy thing about us is that even though we've met in person like a few times, like we know each other through kind of weird mutual friends, right? Like we know
Yeah.
like through Pat and Edwin, I guess,
Mhm.
who both worked at like Capcom with me and like worked with you like way back. So
Yeah.
that's crazy. This is like small industry, dude.
Hmm. Well, it was well. I mean, I should segue into the other thing. Is like when I guess the first like AAA studio I worked at was Neversoft back in like 2004, and that was actually I would say kind of my how do you say that's when I realized how far behind I was.
Hmm.
Like when I'm sitting beside like John Rush and Chris George and like even poop in my mouth and like all these guys, and I was the weak
Which
link
is
on
his
the team.
that's his birth name.
Yeah. No, I was definitely like I was the weak link on that team. I was the guy that's breaking the build every day, and the one that just wasn't quite up to snuff. But it kind of that was when I realized, man, I gotta start working on this stuff at home. And it was around the time of the first Dominance War, and just it was a bit of an awakening for me because I was always like a one of the top artists in my peer group, I would say.
Hmm.
But then I went there and I was like, yeah, I'm really low down on this rung, and that's when I discovered CG Chat and Polycount and all these other forums and such.
Hmm.
But yeah, that was, and then kind of just from there, I started. being more active in Polycount and I guess CG Chat, Game Artisans, and whatever. And I
Hmm.
started doing those contests, and you know, it
Yeah,
was
totally.
yeah, it was that was kind of like when I really started embracing it. Because before I was just always like, okay, well, this is something I'm kind of good at. It's my 9 to 5 job, and I'll just go home and play video games and play dodgeball or whatever.
Kickball.
Yeah.
Yeah. As you do.
Yeah.
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 But
So
cool, man.
yeah, then I guess I moved to Montreal shortly after working on a working on a few games at Neversoft of Tony Hawk Gun, and then I came here, did a we call it the tour in Montreal. It's like there's a bunch of game studios, and for some reason, well, not for some reason, people, a lot of Montrealers, there's a few guys who are lifers at these studios, and other guys who just kind of bounce around because
Hmm.
uh, I guess it's the only way to get a decent raise, unfortunately.
Yeah, or like a
'Cause,
promotion, right?
yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. I mean, it's kind of unfortunate, but like, I guess that's kind of, well, I shouldn't probably say too much about other people's salary situations, but there are a lot of people that leave due to money, and it's kind of unfortunate because the the investment the companies make into these individuals are usually quite high, but and they're kind of not really viewing them from that point of view. They're kind of viewing them as like, oh well, they only cost this much money. We can replace them for this much money.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Yeah, it's like a pretty short-sighted way of looking at it, you know?
Mhm. Yeah. Anyway, so I've done kind of the tour of Montreal. I did. I've worked at like 4 different game studios now. I'm on my hopefully my last one, which is IDOS,
Hmm.
and hopefully I'll be here for a while until I either start my own thing or until they make me go.
Hmm.
So yeah, they treat me well here. They like I like the projects I work on, and I like the people I work on it with, and so as far as I'm concerned, there's no reason to leave.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
You're the lead now, right?
No, actually, I was the lead on Thief,
Oh, okay.
and when I joined Deus Ex, it was a guy, Sebastian Legrand. He was kind of the lead there, and then since then they handed it off to Laura
Hmm.
Gallagher. I don't think she has any online presence. She doesn't have a portfolio, but she's kind of like well known around Montreal because she's one of the teachers as well over at Centre Nad, which is a very kind of it's a pretty good school. It's a pretty good
Hmm.
school, and a lot of the local game art students kind of come up through the ranks and join the industry.
Hmm.
So yeah, she was a lot more familiar with the team and a lot more familiar with the tech and a lot more familiar with the franchise. So kind of everyone decided it would be a lot. Well, yeah, everyone decided she would be a lot better for the role than me.
Oh, nice. Um, cool. And I mean, you're obviously super happy in beautiful, balmy Montreal, right?
It's actually not too bad today, even being in December.
Yeah, yeah. So I guess like part of like wanting to bring you on, like you and I were talking over I am. I mean, obviously we all know each other, and we go way, way back to Milk Money days, I suppose.
Yeah.
But uh, you got kind of brought up like a few good topics like to us, and I guess like rather than trying to like weave them in and out and trying to sound like a professional or something like that, I mean, I'll just bring them up and like we can kind of start talking about them. And a lot of them are about I mean, I guess like previous episodes, like talking to like Josh and kind of just rants or whatever that we would have had in the past. Um, so first, I mean, I guess talking about school and I guess like normal like teaching practices and kind of like railing on. I guess for me, it's like railing on like AI and stuff, but
Yeah.
not to name names or name a broad organization, but I think everyone's pretty aware. Um, so I know like I can't remember if you're currently teaching or if you've taught in the past.
I'm still
Um,
teaching. I'm teaching
yeah,
at Champlain College of Vermont. It's an American school that actually has a campus up in Montreal.
hmm that's where
Uh,
like Ben Lama is like a professor there, right?
Nate
Nate,
Nickel.
yeah,
Nate
yeah,
Nickel.
Nate, yeah, yeah,
Yeah, he's kind of the well-known guy there. He's down in the Burlington campus though. He's kind of whipping them into shape down there, so he's doing a pretty good job of that.
nice.
Yeah, I guess kind of The campus was kind of set up here in Montreal because there's like such a huge games industry here, and there was a kind of an allure to have like what do you call it? A work, sorry, a school abroad type program, even though it's like 2 hours north.
Hmm.
But yeah, so like I think what happens is a lot of the students come up here and they're kind of stunned, I would say, but at like the different pace, because all the teachers there are actually working in the industry. In class, in fact, I think half of Champlain's is employing IDOS person, like IDOS people. The lead programmer is there, the lead environment artist. We have a concept artist by the name of Nick Orrock, I think he was on Assassin's Creed and Rainbow Six. Like they have some really top notch talent teaching
Hmm.
at these places, and in a lot of ways, I think that's kind of how you have to almost do it.
Yeah.
Like you need to have people who are kind of privy to industry knowledge, kind of up to speed with what's going on, what the best practices are, what studios are kind of looking for.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean,
Um,
there's so many like schools that are, I mean, generally out of touch. You know, I mean, it's kind of like a complaint that I hear a lot, and it's pretty like obvious when you're looking at like portfolios and stuff, and I mean, it's like way dated. It's like you're looking at a portfolio from like 1998.
yeah, I mean, I'm surprised at how many students still they still follow that entire thing where they model a low poly and then
Hmm.
they'll just go into CG textures, find a rusted metal texture. Doesn't matter what the material is, they'll just find that rusty metal texture. They'll apply it, and
Hmm.
to get a normal map, they'll just run that through Crazy Bump, and then to get a spec map, they'll just desaturate, diffuse it, and hey, model's done, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And I'm surprised at how many people still kind of follow that workflow.
yeah.
Yeah, but I think kind
What you
of
trying to say, man? What you trying to say?
well,
No.
I guess a couple of things I think that when I first joined the program, I and it's no disrespect to the teachers that were there. There's no disrespect to the program that was there. They were doing some really good things, but I think there were a couple of things that um, I personally wanted to change, and they were totally cool with this. But I found that the skills that were necessary were not really aligned with and this kind of goes with a lot of other schools, and this is also another debate that I've had with Laura, the other teacher, also
Hmm.
on my team. Uh, and I find that there's certain skills that allow you kind of allow the students a better chance at getting work. And one of the first things, unfortunately, I tell them is you're probably not going to get a job as a character artist. So
Hmm.
just drop that. Just focus on props, focus on baking, focus on materials, focus on your high res. And I find that those skills are a lot more transferable to getting a job than
Hmm.
getting people making their favorite anime characters. Or I mean, I still do teach a character class, but it's much more centered on just hyper realism. I know this sounds boring. I know this goes completely against what Josh was saying the podcast before,
Hmm.
but just because when you have a hyper stylized portfolio, you're limiting yourself to like a handful of studios, and there's just not that many opportunities for it. And also, you have to be almost that much better than everyone to get one of those jobs.
Right.
Whereas if
Like
you
you basically need to be like a Josh Singh.
yeah, you have to be a Josh Singh or a Gavin Goulden to get one of those jobs, right?
Yeah.
But if you would say, okay, well, I mean, one of the things that I do is when the students come in, first day of class, I ask them, okay, well, what's your favorite game? And they're like, oh yeah, World of Warcraft, Diablo, Skyrim. Okay, well, cool. You guys like doing fantasy? Like, what genre do you guys like working in? And invariably, they always say like sci-fi, fantasy, and name me all of the fantasy studios in North America. And they're like, oh, they have Blizzard and Bethesda and BioWare, and then it starts to trail off. Like there's nowhere else to go there. It's like,
Hmm.
okay, that's like 15 jobs, right? So
Yeah.
good luck with that. But where if they have like a more of a hyper real focus, uh, then it's sort of like, okay, well, there's all those EA Sports games, there's all those shooters like Call of Duties and that come out every year. There's all of these, um, yeah, I don't know, like there's definitely a lot more when it comes to just having hyper real. And at
Yeah.
least that's a lot more flexible because if you see a hyper real person, you can envision that hyper real dude in Assassin's Creed. You can picture them in Call of Duty, or you can picture them in GTA or whatever. But
Hmm.
showing a fantasy guy, like almost every stylized studio will be like, we want to see you do this exactly in our style and have that mastered before you even apply here, kind of thing. And that makes it
Yeah.
really tough to try and break in.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely see a lot of portfolios that are basically like League of Legends fan art portfolios, you know. But I mean, obviously, I mean, no offense, but like not done to the caliber that like Riot would require. You know what I mean? So I
And
mean,
it's a shame because a lot of them are still really good, and
yeah,
given any other genre, they probably would have broken in. But it's just that's
yeah. I mean, it's pretty tough though because like when I mean, I don't necessarily have like a super realistic portfolio or anything, but I feel like the things that are in my portfolio you could see working on like a different title, right? Like
yeah,
there's like an understanding of like anatomy, balance of like detail, like color, lighting, and stuff like that. Um, but when you're applying to, you know, like for me, I've got like openings at like my company, and I mean even like Sunset, though it was stylized, we
mm,
still like used a lot of, you know, I mean we're trying to be like anatomically correct and then, you know, stylized beyond that, right? So it's not
yeah,
like just completely fucking made up anatomy and stuff.
mhm,
Um, but anyway, I guess like what I'm saying is like it's kind of hard for me, and I think probably a lot of like art directors to see this like crazy stylized portfolio and then see it working on something that you're on, right? So if you've got like this League of Legends portfolio, and I guess I say League of Legends portfolio like it's this fucking damning thing, but you know what I mean. I mean, I guess it's like
yeah,
the most popular stylized thing right now, but you know, you get that, and like you're working on like Call of Duty, or you're working on like even like Titanfall or something like that, right?
mhm,
It's got to be hard to see that art, you know, transferring onto like what you're doing without like a huge amount of like education or like ramp up, and you know, I mean, even it's like, would this person even want to work on this project, like what I'm working on? Like, would they want to? Do they want to make like Marines? Do they want to make, you know,
yeah,
this like realistic stuff, right? Because it doesn't really seem to be in their you know, their wheelhouse, like what they even would want to do from like for every day for like, you know, 60 hours a week,
yeah, pretty much.
you know.
Uh,
Yeah, that gap is it's too big, eh? Like for any, I mean, I know that all of us have been in that position where we've been kind of I spying a bunch of folios for to grow our teams or whatever, and it's like if you have like 25 or 50 portfolios there, and there is even one or two people who are kind of closer to what it is that you're doing, and they're good enough, you're going to gravitate towards that kind of fairly quickly
mhm,
over someone who's just kind of maybe much better at hand painting some super stylized thing over this side, but doesn't necessarily apply to what you're working on.
Hmm.
mhm,
So it's like it's again, it's just one of those things, man. It's just unfortunately, man. I mean, regardless of your personal like taste or whatever, it's just like, hey, this is the kind of stuff that we're doing here for this project. We kind of need to see this stuff. So in that circumstance, the super stylized, crazy kind of one-off folio piece over that side just doesn't apply, man.
mhm.
Hmm.
Well, going back to the entire teaching thing, I would say, sorry for kind of diverting like that, but um, I noticed that another thing that a lot of students like to do is they like to work on not necessarily what'll get them a job, but just kind of things they love.
Hmm.
And I don't want to take that away from them, but the first thing I do is take that away from them. Is like, they really have to start making things like barrels. They have to start making things like just a lot more of those mundane objects. And in terms of content of their portfolio, I would say, and just having a bunch of fantasy swords doesn't help them, even no matter how
Hmm.
much they love it. And I don't want to say stop doing this because this is obviously getting you better, just kind of on a broad level.
Hmm.
It's getting them to kind of more focused on recognizable objects. I think is
Hmm.
a huge step towards what we can do to maybe correct what the education system is doing.
Yeah. I
Um,
mean, as far as like stylized stuff goes, I mean, do you feel that like you almost have to learn the like real world equivalent before you can stylize something properly?
oh, definitely, I
Hmm.
completely believe so.
Yeah, 'cause I mean that would kind of work that way, right? It's like I mean you're making these like mundane objects that might not make it into your portfolio or whatever, right? But as soon as you start learning like the fundamentals on how to like replicate something, I mean, I think we've all done like completely normal bald-headed guy just to get like anatomy down and stuff like that, right? And
Yeah,
then you start learning like what you can push and pull and like what works versus just diving in and just making stuff up. And I
yeah.
mean, a lot of the times it's almost seen as like hiding your misunderstanding of anatomy
Hmm.
and like technical skills like that.
Hmm.
For me anyway.
Well, I think that also, um, I think a lot of the times, even when I see your work, you can
Hmm.
tell, okay, well, this guy knows anatomy. He's not like, even though he's hiding it, you can
Hmm.
tell, okay, well, they understand it. And there's enough kind of diversity in your portfolio that shows that. And I don't think you get that without an extensive amount of experience, right?
Hmm.
So, if you're just going to be doing stylized and nothing but stylized, well, it's you can still get there,
Hmm.
but I think it's harder to show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I usually tell. I mean, I've never really taught a class like you have, or anything like that. So I've never had to like grade papers or like fail people and stuff.
Hmm.
But I mean, reviewing like a lot of portfolios, I guess what I tell a lot of students is that I mean, you can do what you love, right? I mean, if you want to do like Blizzard art forever, right?
Hmm.
I mean, don't stop doing that, but understand that there's a huge gamble in doing this. It's like a not very transferable uh, style, and like you're kind of limiting yourself. But if you want to take that risk and you want to take that, make that gamble, I mean, go for it, right?
Hmm.
I mean, I don't know how good of advice that is
Well, I
necessarily.
mean, I guess kind of another topic we're going to kind of digress into is we were talking a bit before about specialization and just how like when you're specialized in something, it
Hmm.
in a lot of ways it's great because you're known for that specialization, but on the flip side, it's really bad because then you get pigeonholed into that specialization.
Hmm.
So, I mean, and this has kind of been the gripe of my entire career, to be honest. Like, on that game Gun, I made a bunch of animals for Gun, and so I had
You
like
made the horses, didn't you?
John Rush actually did the base horse. I kind of did like a did Reed's horse, which is like one of the boss characters, and
Oh,
I did
nice.
a lot of the wolves and like it's a lot of these critters that you shoot around, and like for me that was fun. But like as soon as the character team realized that I didn't mind doing them, they're like, here, have all of them. Like,
Hmm. You're the animal guy now.
yeah. And then, but then that stuck with me. And then, like when I went on to Far Cry 2, they're like, "Hey, you want to make the entire African Serengeti?" I'm like, "No, not really." And then so
Yeah.
even now is like I did some hand painted stuff, and like people were like, "Can you do this other thing? I know that you're the hand painted guy." I'm like, "No, I can do a lot of stuff, right?" But
Hmm.
and so it just kind of bit like even right now on Deus Ex, I did a few of the hair, and they're like, "Oh, you're the hair guy now. Just do all the hair." I'm like, "Oh God, okay." And then I'm getting people, recruiters messaging me saying, "Hey, do you want to do all the hair for this other game?" I'm like, no, like what
Hmm.
the hell? So I don't know. That's been my gripe and I know that like Troy has probably gotten that with. I know I've heard you gripe about people asking if you can make dudes,
Hmm.
right? And I've
Yeah,
never
yeah,
been.
yeah. That's totally happened, man. It's always funny, but because I think it generally comes from. I mean, I don't think I've ever had any like any serious kind of like job application or anything like that who have ever kind of like come forward and been like, hey, can you actually make a dude? Like, it's always been kind of like general public. There's always been like, man, you need a dude in your folio or whatever. Um, just who have made those kind of comments.
And then you're like, why do I need a dude in my portfolio? And then they're like, I don't know, you just do.
Yeah, it's like because it just needs some diversity or whatever. But I don't know, man. I've just always got like a secret stash of stuff that I always pass over. If I'm ever in that position where I need to get a new job or be hired at some place, and that seems to just smooth things over a bit because yeah, like I've always said before, man, I just don't think that there's any way, shape, or form, like for any character artist to work for, 10, 12 years or whatever it is without like ever making a dude or a monster. And you know what I mean? It's just kind of
Hmm.
impossible, man. Or some animal or creature or anything like that.
Hmm. Yeah, man.
Um,
What's that,
oh,
Jock?
oh no, I was just mulling over some thoughts right now.
Yeah, so I mean, I guess this I mean, it's kind of like the topic that we were talking about of like, you know, the virtues of specialization, versus just having like a generalized set of skills. I
Yeah.
mean, I think like you and I mean, and maybe all three of us in a way, like have like a different, I guess like maybe I don't know, a foundation. I guess I want to say like I think like you definitely have like a way bigger interest in anatomy than I do, and
That's
I mean
pretty good.
yeah, but I mean even so, it's like I mean I think um I mean I don't know, I don't want to like assume assume something of you, but I mean I think that like you might be more of an artist than I am. You know what I mean? And I think like you and people like you, like your kind of people, um, uh, really like value that like almost classical art aspect of it. For me, like I've just always wanted to make games. Like that's what I want to do. Like I don't even necessarily want to make art. I just happen to be good at it. You know what I mean? Like it's just something that I've just kind of done. But I mean, I've never really had the training or had like the really even like the interest in doing, like a copy of, like a classic sculpture or something like that. So it just kind of like ends up coming in as I mean, I guess like a byproduct. I don't know. I don't want to sound like negative about it or whatever because I'm not. But it's just like, it's like, like anything like that. I just kind of learned to get better at making characters for games. You know what I mean? Versus
Yeah.
like um, really having like a keen interest in it. Um, yeah, I'm really not really sure where I'm going with that. But basically, like, uh, I mean, would you say that like would you like consider yourself to be like specialized in a thing, or like I mean not to be
Well,
like you're the hair guy, but I mean are you like are like would you be specialized in something, or would
well,
you consider yourself like more generalized than someone like me that would have like kind of a portfolio that kind of touches like on the same note usually?
see, the thing is like I guess if you kind of look at our game art heroes in a lot of ways, I idolize guys like Kite and
Hmm.
Vadim and just guys that can kind of do it all, especially if they can concept along with do some crazy hard surface, do some hand painted textures, and their anatomy is spot on. Like those are the guys I idolize, and
Hmm.
I try to kind of emulate I guess kind of emulate my skill set. So I find that what I'm doing is, and this is kind of dating back to God knows when. I always see like a piece that inspires me, and I think a lot of the game art community does this.
Hmm.
So after Vadim won Dominance War 3, was it? Just
Uh,
then you just saw
yeah.
everyone kind of go this hard surface route
Hmm.
and just obsess about it. And kind of I was totally in that same ballpark. I was like, oh my god, like I can't be this bad at hard surface relative to my peers, right? So
Hmm.
here I am doing hard surface stuff, like in my spare time, hard surface this, and then you get to see like um, Pure do this new like hand painted thing. Like I can't be this bad at hand painted, right? And so
Hmm.
here I am for like the next 2 or 3 years doing hand painted things, and and
Hmm.
then I guess then it came like the anatomy thing, and like I guess it was Del Walker that introduced me to the Scott Eaton class he had took, and I saw him like level up immensely after taking
Hmm.
his classes, and so that this is my new obsession. It's like it's focusing just on anatomy, and just like it's an area of I didn't realize was a weakness until I took the class, and I highly recommend any artist, stylized or not, to take his at least his anatomy class, just because in a lot of ways you kind of don't know what you're doing wrong, and once you see it you can't unsee it. Right? So
Hmm.
what he does at the end of the classes is he used to like take up these famous like well-known zebra central top row pieces and kind of just like massacre them, right? And
Hmm.
believe it or not, that was incredibly informative. Like, and these are some of my favorite. I'm not going to name which ones, but
Hmm.
they were just kind of some of my favorite pieces that were in my inspiration folder. I'm like, oh, now I can't unsee that. Oh,
Hmm.
the
Like he
biceps just like it's going to the wrong place, and
man, he just like metachlorianed all the work for you. It's just ruining
yeah.
everything.
Well, it just well then you start growing an appreciation for other artists who are able to do it and just
Hmm.
maybe do it in more of a subtle manner. And anyway, so that's my latest obsession is the anatomy thing. I'm sure eventually I'll move on to something else, and this has kind of just been going on my entire career. So as to what I like to focus on, it's my areas of weakness.
Hmm.
Yeah. So it is funny though because I like Troy. I have this massive backlog of like I mean my portfolio has like what, 6 pieces in it. I haven't even updated in 4 years, which I do not recommend. By the way, unless you're getting regular job offers, is don't do what I'm doing.
Hmm.
um, but yeah, hmm. Right now I'm doing at work is mainly photo sourced, anatomically correct stuff.
Hmm.
Treading on a bit more of the realistic side, and like in a lot of times I'll just kind of rotoscope the head sculpts and things like that. I know that sounds boring, but
Yeah. No, I mean, I've been kind of messing with like scan stuff and
yeah.
things like that too. I mean, I did like a long time ago, like on sports titles and stuff as well. Um, I mean, even though it's not like necessarily, um, I mean, like what would get me up in the morning and be like super excited to go do this, but like it's a crazy learning experience. You know what I mean? I mean, I mean, for me, like the best learning tool for like my like anatomy and stuff like that was looking at 3D scan people. You know what I mean? And same with like clothing and stuff too. And it's not like I necessarily am using it like in my work or anything, but I mean just looking at it and just being the kind of like learner that I am, like the way that I do it is just kind of looking at it and spinning it around and being like, oh, okay, and just kind of like bring it into like ZBrush, looking at like what I did and like looking at what they have. It's like, oh, I was like way off. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just kind of a cool learning tool, even if it does sound boring. You know?
The funny thing is I don't really find it boring. I find that I'm learning different lessons from it. Like
Hmm.
it's we're not using scanned work on Deus Ex, but we are doing a lot more kind of more focused, hyper realistic stuff. Like we have a guy, we had a guy, Eugene Fucking,
Hmm.
who was doing these brilliant heads and just like just the amount I learned just by sitting next to this guy about
Hmm.
heads. And like he'll just after I sculpted a head, I'd turn to him like, dude, what's wrong with it? And he'll just say like, this should be over like quarter of a centimeter, and it's like, dude, that fixed it. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
and then he'll like tell me a simple rule that he lives by, and I'm like, dude, that is just nuts cool. Like I'm gonna apply that no matter what I do for the rest of my life, right?
Hmm.
I don't know if you've ever seen his work, but he's
Oh
got
yeah.
thousands of heads that he does. Like just every lunch, he's like sculpting a new head, and it's
Hmm.
that kind of obsession about it. And and it's what's scary is like guys like him, they never feel like they're good enough, right? So
Yeah. I mean, I think a lot of us suffer from like the imposter syndrome or whatever, like just never feeling like you're good enough, even though you're like clearly a fucking legend. Um, but that's kind of interesting because it kind of brings up a question that one of our followers brought up was um, basically learning as a freelancer versus being like an in-house artist. Um, I mean, I've done a little bit of freelance. I'm not sure if you really have, but I mean, obviously, uh, Hazardous has done a ton. But I mean, how do you guys feel about that? I mean, do you feel that experience is experience? But I mean, obviously, as a freelancer, you wouldn't be able to like turn around to like Eugene and be like, "Hey, man, what's the deal? Like, what's wrong here?" Like,
yeah,
um,
I think one of the
Yeah.
things though is and I could be wrong, but aside from like Mashru Mishu, like I don't see a lot of freelancers having the time to actually do a lot of like exploratory work. I could be wrong though, but I guess Marco Plouffe too. Like he does a lot of exploratory type work on top of his freelance career, and yeah, just I find most of the freelancers are just bogged down with just
mhm,
crazy amounts of like you know, workload,
Yeah.
and especially because they get paid for it, and
Yeah,
for your stuff that they're
dude.
doing,
Like
right?
I mean, I only did like a short stint as like a full-time freelancer. It was like a year and a half or something like that. And the reason why I had to get out is because everything equated to money for me. So like I couldn't do anything, dude. Like I would work and then I'd want to go out and get dinner or something. But then like I'm at dinner and it's like, an hour or two. I'm like, fuck, man, that could be like that's like a few $100 or something that I could be getting right now. You know what I mean? So it's like everything. Like I wouldn't like play games, I wouldn't watch TV, I wouldn't work on my own stuff because I had other stuff I could do and I could get it done faster so I get more money and then I can work more the next day and it kind of becomes this weird like snowball of putting myself through like an insane amount of work. So I mean even though I think I learned stuff on how to deal with like I definitely learned like how to deal with like clients, how to like manage my time, how to like you know uh follow up about money and stuff like that and like kind of negotiate and all that. But I mean as far as like technical skills, I don't think I learned a ton. I mean I got to work with Kite on a project and he was like basically my lead and that was like the best learning experience ever. But I mean it wasn't like a crazy he's not like sitting at my desk and helping me. He's just kind of like, showing me how to like fix my textures and stuff like that. But that was like kind of a way smaller percentage than like, the rest of the time. The rest of the time is just kind of like doing whatever like the client wants.
Mm. I think for me, man, like I was telling you guys before, my career has basically been split between in-house and freelance, and it's probably up to like 13, 12 or 13 years or something like that now. And I think like 6 or 7 years has been in-house, and the other's been kind of straight freelance. And I think you learn a lot about. I think it's pretty split, man. Because I think when you're in-house, you learn a lot about like dealing with people, and there's always some like level of politics that you have to kind of like get up to speed with.
Hmm.
Um, no matter kind of where you go, there's a level of kind of like people interaction that you have to kind of like get on board with and get up to speed with and know, how to interact with people the right way. And because you can't like just treat everything the same as you would when you were freelancing. Um, and as far as like the learning thing goes, man, I think what I learned the most when I was freelancing was just able to focus on whatever it was that I was doing for much longer periods of time.
Hmm.
And you're able to just fucking become a filthy animal. You know what I mean? Like you can just fucking roll out of bed and just get straight to work. And not that it's the greatest thing in the world, man. That's
Hmm.
hygiene kind of goes out the window, and it's like
Oh
you
yeah.
said, actually, it's totally like you said, dude. Like I was the same, and I actually got to a point where after kind of a 2 or 3 year stint of just slaving away, my brother came to see me one time, and he was just like, dude, what you literally look dead. Like what the fuck what are you doing? Like you
Hmm.
you gotta you gotta make some changes, man. Like and this is a dude who's like a total dude. You know what I mean? Like
Hmm.
he's never said anything kind of like
Like, oh, how you
above.
doing?
Yeah, dude, nothing like that. You know what I mean? This is the first time that he'd ever approached me in that way, and I was just like, holy shit, there must be something going on here. And that was the point where I was just like, whoa, man, I need to turn, dial it back a bit and spend more time with my partner and then just kind of like just have a little bit of a life, you know what I mean? And can
Hmm.
cut back on the freelance hours. But it's like you said, dude, the money, it was just all about money, and I was fucking whew, man, I was raking it,
Hmm.
I was also getting ripped off at the same time, but still, I was
Yeah.
just hauling it in, man. You can earn a lot of money freelancing, and I think if you're skilled enough and you've got you've put your work in the right places, you can have a constant stream of work and you can live very happily like that. But yeah, I kind of have to agree with you, man. Like learning all the technical sides of like putting game assets into a game, and learning about version control software, and it just interacting with a bunch of people who are in different disciplines is just
Hmm.
a massive help. I think
Yeah. Well,
they
dude,
kind of
even
complement each other. I think freelance and in-house.
That money issue though, the like I remember that was like not that I want to bring up the actual values, but I was doing like a like I guess one of the few times I actually did delve into part-time freelance, which is I was doing like a DS title, and they were like, "Hey, can you make like it was an old friend of mine who said, "Hey, can you make a DS character for us? It's $400." I'm like, "Sure, right?" So I spent a couple nights making a DS character, like super low spec, and like a 64 by 64. It might have been a 128, 128 texture, and like it took me no time at all. But like I got one done in a couple of days, which I thought was a decent time frame.
hmm
And he's like, "Well, we need like a lot of these. Can you do more?" And my schedule was kind of ramped up, so I recommended Ben Reginald to do this thing.
hmm
That guy did like 16 of these things in a day,
hmm
and he did the entire game in a week.
Yeah.
And it's like, man, okay, that is some crazy money,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah, man.
it was.
I mean, I think it could definitely work, man, for sure. I mean, I don't know if I could ever go back to it just because, like, dude, I mean, when I was doing it full time, like, I lost, like, people skills, you know? I mean, I never talked to, like, anyone else. It's just kind of this weird guy in a cave that just only came out to get coffee and then, like, scurry back and work for, like, 20 hours, you know?
I eat food
Yeah,
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 today.
yeah.
basically.
You need to
Yeah,
remember how to communicate with people, eh?
yeah. I mean, it's
Get
like,
all
I mean, I think, like, you don't really learn, like when you're in like a studio, you kind of end up learning like conflict resolution and stuff. So
mm,
dealing with dealing with other departments, realizing the process of how something is like made the way it is and like why it is, and supporting other departments and trying like pushing for new features and stuff is, I mean, to me, it's like probably as beneficial as actually being like a competent artist. You know what I mean? Like being able to be like a person you can work with versus like just a guy who's really good at sculpting, you know?
You know what's kind of funny on that about that is like I remember when I was at A2M or behavior or whatever it's called now.
Hmm.
I was like I remember just being this guy who was just completely obsessively compulsive about doing things the right way.
Hmm.
Naming things like this, doing things like this, and I just became a total asshole, like just
Hmm.
within the company, and just people like no matter even if they got like the best work,
Hmm.
were kind of almost scared to work with me because I would start calling them on shit and start calling
Hmm.
like zero soft skills, right?
Yeah, it's
And
it's character head 01, not character 01 head.
oh no, it went
Oh, you
beyond that. It
you
went it
you
went into like
fucking idiot.
there were some obviously some bad practices, but like there was a lot of things I kind of didn't know on the other side of this that I had no sympathy for, and I noticed that there's a lot of like kind of a lot of guys in the industry who are kind of angry about where they work and like if only it was done this way, like, and they could be right, they probably are right, but the thing is something I learned about all of this was oftentimes the client kind of doesn't really care.
Hmm.
And if you're going to cut corners wherever, or if you're going to do something, and it was kind of developing a higher level of empathy for even I would say I don't want to say the bad practices, but like the the bad practices,
Hmm.
just a higher level of empathy because ultimately it's if it didn't really if it mattered as much as I thought it did, I would probably like they would probably would have changed that.
Hmm.
I don't know if this is too meta for you guys, but uh, one of the books I read was this book called Corporate Confidential, and
Hmm.
it talked a lot about how like you can't be harping on the people you work with, you can't be harping on your managers, you can't like you can't be the negative person on the team, right? You
Hmm.
can't be that guy that is going to complain, that the guy that's going to if you ever put into a management position is just going to wreck shit, right? Like you can't be that guy. So you
Hmm.
you really have to kind of focus on the empathetic level, and that's something that I kind of I guess I learned at the like in the last few years, where I'm not always pushing anymore, even though there is better ways to do it. If they ask me, is there a better way to do it? I'll say, let's do it this way, but I'll let them decide whether it's done or not, because ultimately it's not my place to tell them exactly how to do things, even though I know it works better as a fact.
Hmm.
But fighting for it, you become that fighting guy who just complains, right? So
Hmm.
And that was one of those soft skills that I think I learned working in a studio, smaller teams and whatnot.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
Um,
you'd never figure that out working freelance, man, by yourself. That's a pretty good example.
Hmm.
mhm,
When it comes to like things like even baking normal maps, like if it were up to me, I am anal beyond all shit. Like everything that earthquake posts, like just gobble it all up. Like what do I do? Oh
mhm,
yeah, I break the smoothing group. Okay, done, right? Because that guy's got crazy awesome bakes, right?
mhm.
So everything that uh, everything that I do in the studio, like I see people just like one smoothing group the entire thing and just bake it. They don't care if there's artifacts, whatever, hide them.
Mhm.
That would like I would fight that shit like 5 years ago. Now it's sort of like, you know what, art director passed it anyway, so you know maybe it really doesn't matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of those things where like in the end it looks good and like people aren't really looking like under the hood that much, you know. So it might not be technically the best, but you
Mm-hmm.
know, I mean, it's whatever, like you know, like you said, like passable by the art director or like not noticeable by the you know consumer or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, man, I get that for sure. I mean, like for like process and stuff, that's I think it's still something that I'm kind of I guess like struggling with. Like I don't think like I am like that, but for like you know naming and like placing things like a certain way, doing things a certain way. I mean, it's not like this overbearing like you know father or something like that, but it's like I don't know. I think it's just only because I've worked on like so many projects where there was no order. You know what I mean? It's like I'm trying to make it better for you. You know what I mean? Versus um you know just like fucking anarchy and having like no idea where anything is or like
Oh,
tracking things down at the end of a project and just like ripping your hair out. You know?
oh, the worst is when you know you're working on a system and it fails miserably. Then you like join another company or you join another project and they're using the same system,
Hmm.
and you're like, oh, dude, we're gonna fall into problems all over here with
Yeah.
this and this and this, and like you don't like. I mean, I'll flag those. I'll flag those issues,
Hmm.
but I won't fight for them like I used to, just because
Yeah.
it
I
doesn't
mean,
make.
there's probably like this fine balance between like the word of warning and some like crazy person who can see the future. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? And you're just
exactly.
like, no, man, I know exactly what's going to happen 3 years from now. You're going to be like sifting through this level trying to find this asset, and you will never be able to find it because it's just got a like a temporary name that no one ever fixed. You know?
Yeah. Hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Um. So like going back to like the, I mean, I guess like the freelancing aspect of it. I mean, are you guys able to say like what? I mean, you must get the question a lot. I mean, I get the question quite a bit about how much someone should charge like for their work, like at like an entry level or like medium level. And I mean, I guess beyond that, do you feel that? Well, I mean, I don't want to get ahead of myself, but basically, do you feel that like the junior artist position is being replaced by outsourcing? And if is it outsourcing like local outsourcing or like overseas outsourcing, like sending it to like whatever, I mean like India or like China or something like that for like, you know, props and, you know, smaller tier items.
Hmm. Well, hmm. I don't have a lot of experience with full time. I've just worked in a studio for a solid 15-year chunk. Like, you know, I haven't really done a lot of freelancing, but I've
Hmm.
done any freelancing I did was on the side. But in terms of pricing, I would say for someone who is able to do side work, just price yourself where you're getting like a decent kind of stream of offers.
Hmm.
Like, I mean, I price myself a lot higher than normal because I don't necessarily need a stream of offers coming in. So it's
Hmm.
not really worth my time unless it's a certain amount, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I remember reading like a write up and I think it was by Rick Sterling,
Mm-hmm.
like Rockstar,
Mm-hmm.
and like a long time ago, and he was going on about being offered like freelance work and you know the prices that he throws out there. And it's like basically like I could lose my job for freelancing because there's probably like an NDA. Like I could, you know, I've got to do it like in my own time. I've obviously got like a job that consumes most of my time, so it's not like you're buying just time. It's like you're buying my own personal time that
Mm-hmm.
I would normally use to like learn other things or hang out or like recuperate or whatever. You know what I mean? So it kind of you kind of ends up like inflating it just because you know, I mean, it's not just work. It's like this, like kind of a sacrifice on top of your job. you know.
Mhm.
But Troy, do you have like, I mean, you've been like doing this quite a bit, so do you have like a, I don't know, a great mathematical equation for what people should charge?
E equals MC. No, so the first
It's
thing is
it's
is that
uh, it's length times girth over 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 circumference and
oh,
diameter.
divided by throb factor.
Exactly.
No, so I think I think the weird thing is that I don't really think I got a handle on this until maybe like 3, 4, maybe even 5 years into freelancing, man. I think like to begin with, I thought I was organized, but then I realized kind of over time that I just really wasn't because you can't. I think for the first like 4 or 5 years, I was just kind of throwing more or less random numbers out there based on what I thought would be right.
Hmm.
But then, slowly, man, you kind of realize that especially if you're kind of like late teens early 20s and you're just kind of like you've moved out of home, you've just moved into your own apartment, maybe you've got a girlfriend or something, or maybe you've got a boyfriend and you're just trying to start working things out, um, and then I think the estimates that you make are almost always too low, man.
Hmm.
Almost always, because once you start counting in all the little incidental things, fucking right down to just driving up the road to get some lunch, or paying for the insurance on your house, or the office space that you're using in your apartment,
Hmm.
like how much how many square foot is the office that you're using, and the power, how much power, like the percentage of your power. Once you start adding all of that stuff in, you start realizing that, man, actually, if I take all of that out of my hourly rate minus my tax, I'm only left with like $10 an hour, man. What the
Hmm.
hell? You know what I mean? Like, and now I may as well just go to work at McDonald's or something.
Hmm.
So I think, yeah, that took me quite a long time to sort of work that out. So eventually, what I got to was the fact that I think you just you need to price yourself accordingly. Obviously, there is no like flat. Oh, I'm just gonna. It's $50 an hour. You know what I mean? I mean,
Hmm.
that doesn't kind of work that way. I think you kind of have to look really at your situation, look where you live in the world,
Hmm.
and where you want to be, how much money you want to save, how much it costs you to stay where you're staying right now, and you have to also include like some extra cash because you do want to move ahead. You do want to like you know you want to progress, man. You don't want to stay where you're at right now for the rest of your life. You have to like keep growing. So
Hmm. Well,
I
I mean,
think
there's
once carry on.
oh, I was gonna say sorry. There's like other things too that like I mean, when you're a freelancer, it's not like, I mean, I'm kind of speaking with way less experience than you for on the subject, but like, it's not like you're just a guy. You know what I mean? It's not like you're just a guy that can do the job. I mean, you're kind of a business, right? So, I mean, there's things that like the business would be paying for if you work in studio that you have to take on yourself, man. Like, you got to take care of like, your like healthcare and stuff if you're in the
Mm,
states, and
Something I was actually gonna mention about was I know a lot of artists like when they take on a freelance job, like suppose the freelance pays like roughly hourly wage, it'd be like 60,000 a year for like an intermediate artist, right? They're
mm,
like,
mm,
oh, this is 60,000, that's just it. But the thing is in a studio you're given like what 3 weeks vacation, you're given statutory holidays off, and that's
mm,
already
mm.
already that's like a month for free
mhm.
you're given, right? And then you have your sick days, and then you have and
Oh,
that's
dude,
not
and
factored in.
yeah, like the ramp up too, like
Yeah,
your equipment, like your software, like all that stuff, like gets factored into the cost of hiring a new employee at a studio.
Mm.
like I think it was like in Montreal, which is crazy heavily subsidized, right? The average cost of an employee for a business is about 10,000 a month, right? And
Mm.
whatever your salary may be, like just the rent for the place, the all that stuff costs like roughly 10 grand a month, and we're heavily subsidized, right? And we're also on the Canadian dollar, which is like next to nothing right now.
Hmm.
So kind of, I guess with all those factored in, like you really need to add a good solid chunk on top of what you think your in-house salary would be.
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, man. I think that's totally true, and I think honestly, man, that but there it comes like this weird kind of struggle kind of pops in at that point because when you actually when you start to try and work all that stuff out, let's say you're like you're kind of fresh and maybe you've been doing this for like 3 or 4 years. That to me that's still kind of fresh, and I think maybe you're just progressing from that kind of like that junior artist to the kind of intermediate level artist at that point, and I think there's a kind of strange thing because if that's the point where you work this stuff out and you go, okay, well I've been charging like $35 an hour, and I actually work this stuff out and I'm like, dude, I actually need to be charging $60 an hour,
Hmm.
and you make that jump, or you try to make that jump, and all of a sudden everyone's like, yeah, dude, nah, man, we can't really afford that, and you're like, oh well, there goes that client, or there goes that client, and it becomes this process of trying to um, kind of like put a front out there that makes you worth it, like visually. You need to like, you need to push forward with the latest like skills, the latest like tech. You need to be up to play with like everything because they're basically grabbing you so that you can hit the ground just running straight into this
Hmm.
project and do whatever that needs to be done. That's kind of what's expected, I think, if you're a freelancer.
Hmm.
And I think that's a tough that's the only tough transition period that I think that I encountered anyway was that jump. It's like how do I make myself worth that extra chunk of money? And the only way for me was to prove it through making artwork and just kind of like just keep churning it and eventually people were just like, oh man, yeah, this guy can do that thing that we need. Let's just get them to do that.
Hmm.
What I find kind of interesting is Cedric So and Marco Plouffe started up their own freelance studio, and what they're doing is they only take on batch work, so they're not always kind of hitting the ground like trying to get up to speed. They have like 6 solid months booked at a time, I guess.
Hmm.
I'm assuming, but like
Yeah.
they have a lot of work kind of planned in front, so it's not just one character and done. It's sort of like this style, this character, this tech, and they get to kind of keep doing it for a long time, get better
Hmm.
at it, get more efficient at it,
Mm,
right?
I think Slide London works that way too.
Hmm.
They kind of take in like batches or have like rather than like a lot of outsourcing houses, they'll just take on a shit ton of work, and it's like as many people as you can possibly throw at something for like a month or whatever, right? It's like a small group of people that are like dealing in like year contracts, to like kind of work as like a partner and the other with the other team on like the project. It's kind of the same as like I think 3 Point worked that way too,
Hmm.
like uh, like kind of working like hand in hand with companies versus just kind of making one thing and then that's it.
I would say like I would say most freelancers I know that are kind of successful in their careers, they all do it. They all kind of work that way, I guess. Like
Hmm.
Larry Michelle does that, Mashru does that. God knows. Like I guess Bobo and Omnom Studios, they kind of do that entire thing as well. Like you don't see one League of Legends character, you see like 10 or however many it is.
Hmm.
mm.
Yeah, totally. Um, Troy, would you like since this question came in, when you're like freelancing, do you charge the same for like your tabletop stuff as you would for like games? Is like all your time equal? You know what I mean? Like so if you had to do like I mean I don't know how much long a miniature would take, but like a week or two or whatever, would you be charging the same like for that week versus like a week for like game art?
I think it kind of generally comes down to when I used to be just full-time freelance, the only stuff that I would take on was stuff that I actually wanted to do.
Hmm.
And I mean, I was just lucky enough to be in that position, and I think um, when I was in a position where I didn't have any work to do, um, I would actually charge more for the stuff that I didn't want to do. That
Hmm.
was really the only time. Otherwise, it was just like, hey, this is my hourly rate. It doesn't really matter what I'm doing. It's just it just kind of
That's
is what it is.
has time. That's what you're buying.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It was just like this is the hourly rate. That's what it's gonna be, man.
Hmm.
And if I hated the job, I would just jack it up. I just
Hmm.
jacked the price up, man.
Yeah, totally.
That's kind of yeah, that's kind of how it worked.
Nice. So, I mean, do you guys, I mean, I don't know what the, I mean, like IDOS or, I mean, I don't know what if Weta employs like junior people, but do you feel that like outsourcing is killing the junior position, or do you feel that, I mean, there's still like room for both, and it's still kind of a thing? So, I mean, I think there's probably an idea that you graduate school, you become a junior artist, like you make props or something, and then you start making like full environment pieces or like full characters or something, and then kind of like work your way up the ladder. Um, is that still true, or is it kind of being replaced by just shipping it out to a different company?
I think personally think outsourcing died last console generation, and we're just realizing that now.
Hmm.
I guess we were talking about before how there's a kind of a well, we'll get into this later, but um, what happened was last generation there was a heavy reliance on outsourcing, and very few character artists, junior character artists, kind of like broke into the industry for like I would say for the last 8 years. And you can probably count on maybe both hands how many.
Hmm.
There hasn't been that many as a result of outsourcing. Now the thing is now studios are kind of like starting to ramp up and kind of one of the bad problems is there's not enough senior artists because I don't know where the seniors are going or if projects kind of require more seniors,
Hmm.
but there's just like it's impossible to ramp up like the seniors you need on a project. There's tons of from my personal experience, there's been plenty of applications for like junior intermediate level positions, but just someone that can come in and not require a lot of ramp up time. That's a
Hmm.
tough thing to find
Yeah, totally.
now.
I mean, even like for me, like I was telling you guys that, obviously I can't get like into a lot of detail about it, but I mean, we're like hiring at Insomniac, and I've had like hundreds and hundreds of applications, but I mean, there's only two openings, right? And there's only one now that we've brought Xavier on, gladly. But I mean, a lot of them are what you would think would be junior. A lot of them can't, wouldn't even be that. You know what I mean? So, but it's like a really small number of people that you'd consider senior. That would be like like heavily experienced, like above 5 years or whatever. Um, yeah, they're just not there. I mean, I don't know if it's they're comfortable where they are and they just kind of stay there, or if it's like burnout rate or what. But yeah, man, it's like definitely a lot more like newcomers versus salty veterans like ourselves.
Yeah, man. I honestly I don't think that a lot of people realize, or especially like up and coming character artists, or just how difficult it is to kind of like to do exactly what you said, Chuck, about like finding the right senior level artists, character artists, to kind of like set some kind of foundation or backbone to any project going forward. Man, that shit is tough, dude. It's really tough. There's no shortage of people who think they can do it,
Hmm.
but dude, the people who can actually do it, put forward the work, and it's just it's they're all gone, man. Like I don't actually get it. It's like they've just disappeared, you know. So
There might be like I think teams are actually starting to realize they need to. I mean, I've shipped a couple of games where I was like the only character artist on it, and just
Hmm.
outsource management, like managing the outsourcing. And I don't know. I get a lot of. I get a feeling that a lot of it's just sort of like there's a lot more demand for in-house in-studio work, but just there's none. There's no kind of capable artists available. Like I would like. There's job postings for character artists, like senior character artists that are up for like a year,
Hmm.
and no
mm,
one's filling it, and then those seniors leave for greener pastures, and then they're not, then now they're looking for two senior character artists. But like the
mm,
thing is, I get a lot of kind of messages on LinkedIn or on Facebook saying, hey, do you think I'd be good for the senior character artist position? And I have to like kind of break down the difference between just a really good artist and a senior. And of course, this might not necessarily be a shared opinion, but this is kind of my personal opinion. Is like uh, a senior character artist can like join a team and kind of understand more than just kind of the scope of their job. Like they understand things like draw call management. They understand things like,
Mm.
how version control works and all the even weird thing, the nuances that kind of go with, working with Perforce or
Hmm.
or going into like the engine and understanding why the alphas don't work, right? Like
Mm.
there's
Hmm.
people that just kind of throw alphas and everything, and just like then they get there and like, no, no, you have to either, if you're doing forward rendering, you have to do this. If it's deferred rendering, you have to do this. If we're going to do it like this, we have to
Hmm.
use a simple alpha, and like, and those are not things that freelancers or even junior artists would understand. But like, if
Hmm.
you've got nothing but that in your portfolio, you're obviously not demonstrating that you kind of understand a lot of nuances of working within a system. Like, uh, I'm not sure if Gavin, you've ever worked on like an MMO or anything like that, but when you work on like a character, oh no, yeah, Sunset Overdrive had
Hmm.
a character creator, right?
Yeah, and so did
Ruined my existence, by the way. I hate character creators.
oh man, I actually love them. It's like one of the things I love doing the most
Dude,
is
stop it! No,
yeah,
no,
yeah,
no, no.
yeah, dude. I did like Dead Rising 2's character customization, and then did yeah, Sunset's customization system. And
So
dude, I love it, man. I mean, I think like, I mean, one of these days, if I can just rip off like Brink's character customization, like, I'll be a fucking happy man for
yeah,
sure.
but I guess that's the sort of thing that like a senior character artist understands, is like how to work with a system, how to work
Mhm.
with like, hey, all the heads have to be the same
Like,
polygon count, the same
or
horde
like,
order, because we
yeah,
have pets on there and shared heads and
mhm,
shared fire.
shared UVs and all
Yeah.
that other stuff.
So it's like I would say like a senior is someone who understands that.
Hmm.
If you don't really understand that, you're probably not in the senior territory, and that goes beyond just having an amazing portfolio.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, how do you feel about like, um, I mean, again, it's kind of speaking without really experiencing it, but just knowing like some people feel like a certain way about it. Like, if you could have a team of all seniors, right? Like when like Blizzard was hiring like their Titan project or whatever, it was like the team of rock stars, right? I mean, we were like talking to like Josh about it. Um, I mean, do you see like a flaw in that? Because I mean, I do. Like, I mean, I would rather have like a spread throughout my team. So, having like a few seniors, a few mid-range, and like a junior or something. Um, even though you like you'll have to teach more to like the lower level artists, but then it gives like more opportunity to like your seniors to kind of like step in and like mentor and like gain those skills, like kind of learn that aspect of the job. Um, but I mean that's my feelings. I mean I don't know how you guys perceive that. I'm sure Weta is just like full of legends.
I
Oh
think
man,
that.
actually,
Oh,
I'll
go
carry on. You go for it, Jack.
I find that the one thing about the Blizzard team that I thought was maybe a bit of a shame was, like Pior, for instance, he's known for Pior style.
Hmm.
Mark Brunet is known for Mark Brunet's style, and Josh, like, they all have their vastly unique styles, and
Hmm.
Vitali's got his own thing. Well, Vadim's got his own thing, and like you kind of want them to be, you know, you kind of want them to work on a game of their thing, of like their thing,
Hmm.
rather than kind of homogenize them. And I mean, Overwatch looks amazing. I don't want to take anything away from that, but like having like I think a team needs like a Pior and a few of his disciples. Like
Hmm.
I guess Josh kind of talked about that the last podcast where he was kind of a Bobo disciple.
Hmm.
That's kind of what made Darksiders or whatever Warhammer kind of more unified, right? Like
Hmm.
just and I think that sort of system works awesome. If and of course then you get these guys like who are seniors but they can kind of fit into a pipeline.
Hmm.
Uh, so I don't know. I guess it's kind of a nice healthy balance is good, but for me, like I love the style of Overwatch. I think it looks amazing. The team they had was amazing, but I don't know. I do think somebody like Pure should be doing Pure style, and
Hmm.
the art direction of the game should revolve around him. Right?
Right. Yeah, I mean, I wonder how like you'd have you been like a project where like I guess like a lead or like a senior or whatever would have like a very specific style and everyone kind of like gravitates to that or like or would you put him in like an art director kind of role to like just kind of oversee the entire I guess department for like kind of mimicking his style.
I think Deus Ex was definitely like that. Like we hired like Cedric was kind of like an art director, character art director on another
Hmm.
project, but like we hired Marco Plouffe and Fred Doust. Fred was a
Hmm.
student of Marco's, and they basically kind of set the style of how all the hard surface was going to be done in the entire game, right? Like they were
Hmm.
kind of like the leaders. So when if there's ever any like hard surface that needs to be done after that, it's kind of emulating what they kind of set.
Hmm.
And they're neither of them were seniors at the time, but they're definitely like their work was definitely very senior.
Right.
And then we got Eugene Falkin to do like kind of set the tone on the heads, right? So now all the faces and heads are largely kind of Eugene's vision of it, and
Hmm.
and I think that was kind of a cool way of working. It unfortunately led to a lot of specialization, which is sort of my pet peeve still, but
Hmm. You're
uh,
the head. You're the head guy.
you'd be surprised at how many people would love that job. Just
Yeah. Yeah. No kidding.
nonstop.
Yeah.
I personally would hate it, to be honest.
Yeah. I mean, I kind of like having the diversity, from not like day to day, but I mean, I don't think I've ever really been in a spot where I was doing like one thing all the time. I mean, even on like Sunset, doing like our vanity system. I mean, there's still like you work on like bosses or enemies or even like weapons and stuff. Like there's like some kind of variety.
Hmm. Um,
Uh, hmm? So like where do you feel that like I don't know if we ever actually answered it, but like where do we feel that like the seniors went? Like for I mean, I don't know, did like they all fly over like the Bermuda Triangle or something like that, or like do you feel that like I don't know, like are they just comfortable? I mean, I know that you did like I don't know if you did like a poll or like you had like a post or like a write up about like how many artists are actually in the industry, and that's
I think we counted about 490 some odd character artists just working in house,
mhm,
and those were that covered most of the studios most of us could name off the top of our heads. So
mhm,
even if we worded like double that, that's like 800
yeah,
worldwide, which is not a lot, right?
mhm,
Where the seniors went, like I'm trying to track where a lot of the seniors like being kind of the state of the industry as it is. I've been kind of a bit more attuned to where the seniors are going.
mhm,
They're going up to some, if it's not freelance, it's some weird places. Like I saw like Rod Prelier and Serge and David Giraud end up at Gameloft. Like never in a million years did I think those guys would ever go mobile, right?
mhm.
That's
Did,
right. I saw that too, dude. I was like, holy shit, dude. They must be fucking up to no good over there. There's something's cooking there, man.
yeah, I mean, do you feel like I mean, I don't really know how Gameloft is run or anything, but I mean, do you feel that like they maybe they get like more ownership or something like that, or
I don't know.
um,
Like truth be told, like Gameloft here in Montreal, and it's kind of like this undiscovered secret where like because I poached guys like we poached a lot of guys from Gameloft,
mhm,
at us because you're talking about guys that can work within like very strict limitations and have solid artistic skills, and I don't want to yeah I'll say they hate their jobs so much they're just working on so much personal work in their spare
mhm,
time. Like we had like Chris Nuremberg, Anj Sarek, and like Nicholas Garil and even Eugene. They
mhm,
all came, like these guys were like they were all at Gameloft at the same time, and Jocelyn Zeller. Like it's a superstar team, right? And
mhm,
they work their asses off to try and get out of there.
mhm,
And and what's funny is it's actually a pretty good place to work.
mhm,
But I think they were just kind of so confined by mobile space that they just felt there was a lot more they could offer.
mhm,
Yeah, but like it was pretty amazing. Like because every time you hire one of those guys, it's just they understand every nook and cranny. They pull every pixel. Like they get the most out of every pixel, out of
mhm,
every like optimization. Like their work is solid.
yeah, yeah. I mean, it's gonna be like ingrained into them, right? Like, I mean, uh, I guess like all of us kind of like worked on like really low specs and then kind of you know, increased like with technology and stuff. But I mean, as much as I hated my first job, like doing like pixel art and stuff, like taught me a lot about um like efficiency and stuff. Like I mean, I can't imagine if I just started like I don't know, I'm painting a 4096 texture. You know what I mean? It's like that's that's still even kind of ridiculous to me.
That
So,
actually ties back into like the entire school discussion thing
mhm,
because I think one of the big disadvantages that students have now is they never went through that PS2, that PS1, PS2 phase. They
mhm,
they never knew what it was like to struggle with like. I mean, there was a time when like 300 polygons on like a 3D Studio R4 for DOS screen would just chug your system.
mhm,
Like couldn't do that. A 512 texture was like that was like 4 minutes of rendering. Like
yeah,
mm,
and so I think a lot of what the current students missed was just low poly hand painted textures.
mhm,
And uh, and it's funny because that's actually a lot of what I emphasize now in the character class that I teach.
mhm.
Um, Sorry for digressing this topic, by the way, but
No, it's fine. No,
yeah. So
uh, oh,
like
go,
I know
go
that
ahead.
one of the big things was when you're doing a PS2 asset and you're doing like a PS2 character in a week, like you get a lot of feedback and you get to do a mass volume of stuff in a very short time. Whereas if you're doing like a 4096 texture with hair farm and spline hair and just doing high poly, low poly bakes, like you're spending like as a student you're spending like 2 months on a character, right? Just
Mhm,
learning it for the first time. Whereas when
mm,
you're doing a low poly hand painted, you're just jumping into it
mhm.
and then you get to start correcting things like their low poly work, like their edge flow. They get to learn very valuable lessons about conserving UV space and smoothing groups and things like that. And all these kind of more meta lessons, and then you get to kind of grow that base, that base of knowledge. Like, okay, well, let's introduce sculpting into this. Let's introduce spec maps into this. Let's introduce some more things. And that's kind of one of the big disadvantages of trying to break into the games industry now
Mhm.
is there like the breadth of knowledge that kind of I accrued over the last 15 years that I've been doing this is just like I can't even imagine where to start if I were to do this, and that's kind of where I feel a bit sorry for them in a lot of ways because you know they don't they never got to break in with just low poly hand paint textures. I mean, a few guys got to,
Mhm.
but just the amount of volume of characters that I've made over the years is probably numbering in the thousands,
Mhm.
and just to get to where I'm at now, and for students to try and come in and catch up to where we're at,
Mhm.
that's a tough thing to do. Like
Yeah, man,
most
that's
of the
a steep hill to climb. You know.
yeah, and
mm,
it's just getting steeper and steeper too. Like just like I said, the junior character artist position, like that's all but evaporated. There's very few junior character artists that can break into the industry as that.
Mhm.
Um, but
Yeah,
again,
totally.
they do have to show a certain amount of skill and a certain amount of luck, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah,
Um,
totally. I mean, I don't know if we talked about it with like Josh, but um, I mean, I guess like half jokingly, I've said that I wish that the industry was almost like sports in a way, where like you had like the junior team and then you kind of call them up. You know what I mean? So like everybody has to end up doing this, not like a shitty job, but you have to do like the small stuff and you have to like bang out work and you have to like work within like tight constraints and stuff like that. And then you kind of get called up versus like I don't know. I mean, I don't know what your experience is with it, and you probably can't
I
talk
think
a
Blizzard
lot
has
about
that.
it, but
Yeah, Blizzard has that implementation artist they hired on Titan, and
oh
I
yeah.
think most of those guys moved on to being full-time character artists onto Heroes of the Storm or Hearthstone or something. Like I think
Mhm.
they're all working as character artists now.
Yeah,
So
man. I mean, imagine like the skills you learn like just doing that, you know.
hmm
But I mean, I don't know. Like, I mean, I don't know how much you can talk about it because obviously we can't like name names or whatever. But um, I mean, have you worked with? I mean, do you find a difference between working with someone who like their first job is like this amazing company, um, versus someone whose first job was like pushing pixels for like uh, like an iPhone game or something like that, where they've kind of been I guess like the Game Loft guys versus someone whose like first job was like working at like Blizzard or something. Like, do you see a difference in like attitude or like skill set or anything like that?
we hired Fred Doust as a junior for on Deus Ex, and you know the funny thing was is he was junior in title, but the guy stayed at home for like a year and a half, maybe 2 years, just really refining his hard surface skills, like just being an elite in the industry. And so
Hmm.
when he joined the team, he was just like he was just setting a bar for us, you know.
Hmm.
Yeah, there was a lot of the other stuff that he kind of had to ramp up, but because he was so good at one thing that we had to have him.
Yeah. Yeah. Totally.
I mean that I would say is in a lot of ways was luck because it's not like a hard surface gig kind of for a junior artist really pops up every day. You know, it's a
Yeah. No
very
kidding.
rare thing that happened.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's definitely far fewer like hard surface artists that are like crazy gifted versus a guy who can like sculpt a head or something.
Mhm.
Um, I mean, Troy, have you experienced like a difference between uh, I mean, I guess like people on your team with like different I mean, I guess like origin stories or things like that. Or I mean, do you have any like thoughts on that? I mean, I feel that like I mean, I do feel that like if your first job's this like amazing thing, like you almost don't realize how bad it could be. You know what I mean, or how good you have it in a way.
Ah, total douchebags, dude. Nah, nah, nah.
So- and that person's name is.
Yeah. Oh man. No, I mean, I've had the opportunity to work with a whole bunch of people, man, and a big range, and kind of going back to that question about juniors and stuff, dude. I think idealistically, the ultimate scenario or team would be to have like a good range, man. Have a couple of seniors, so you've got a strong backbone. Have the majority, I guess, would be like intermediate level artists,
Hmm.
and then have a few juniors, man. And I think that creates like a nice kind of trickle down effect of like mentorship kind of thing going on, and there's generally lots of like back and forth learning. I think that's kind of pretty healthy, man. And for whatever reason, I think especially in the last few years, that hasn't really been the case. It's kind of like the junior, it's definitely died off, man. It's like everybody just wants the good shit, and so I think that's where the whole like, oh, let's just get some freelance guys. Just don't worry about like hiring a junior. It's like
Hmm.
there's almost no long-term plan for the studio. You know what I mean? It's like, hey, you need to foster like a healthy kind of future for this team. And I think the only way to do that is to kind of ensure that you're bringing up through the ranks some juniors that know, the culture of this studio, how we operate on a day-to-day level, what our pipeline is, how we do things here, and all that stuff. And I don't think you can really kind of keep that rolling if you're just bringing in like seniors all the time.
Hmm.
Well, well, the funny
Um,
thing is because like I was on a like we were on a very senior heavy team, and you kind of like I would say it's nice to have those seniors that are very badass and specialized in a lot of ways. But I think Kenny Carvalho coined like an amazing term because like it's kind of something I'm trying to emulate out of my own career, which kind of I guess ties in the longevity thing. Was he called me a force multiplier? Like basically having me on the team. Like I don't necessarily output as much work as the other people on the team, but having me on the team allows other people on the team to work, a lot more efficiently.
Hmm.
So, I mean, there are seniors like that, and then you get the seniors who are just hyper specialized in one thing. Then you get the seniors who are kind of they they've been at the company for a long time. They know the culture, they know the tools, they know the tech, and there's kind of a nice mix of
Hmm.
those type of seniors that you kind of almost need a balance of, or if
Hmm.
not, and then you kind of have to find a blend of skills between the juniors if you have them. Like I think it's a weird jigsaw puzzle where it's not just juniors, seniors, and intermediates because I think that seniors bring a completely different skill set depending on where they are in the industry or kind of what they've done and
Hmm.
yeah, like the intermediate artists, like I mean, like are they an intermediate force multiplier? Are they an intermediate hearts, like intermediate specialized guy, or are they intermediate know the culture of and the team and the tools kind of thing?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, in a weird way, that kind of works with like different like leadership techniques and stuff too, right? I mean, I remember talking to John Jones a while ago, and I think the way he put it was being the medic to your heavy, right? And
Mm-hmm.
that's like basically what like I try to be is, you know, I'm not, pumping out as much work as other people, but like I'm trying to find like where they would excel, like what gets like the best work out of them and kind of pump them up, you know what I mean? Um, like getting like the best kind of you know, I guess the best output from them versus like me banging out like a ton of work more than other people or whatever. But I mean, obviously, there's like different. I mean, you've probably been to like companies where the lead is like the best artist on the team or something. Like that's basically it. And I mean, I think we talked about this before, but there's kind of like the difference between a lead who's just the most badass artist ever versus a lead who can manage time better or manage like priorities better and stuff like that.
Uh,
Mm.
it's a bit interesting because even going back to what you were saying about the about getting the most optimal output out of your team. In a lot of ways, though, sometimes these guys, depending on their personalities or what their interests lie, they want to work on their weaknesses too, or they just want to
Hmm.
get up to par with those other things. And so, like, they don't want to be the weak link on something, right?
Hmm.
So, and you can get seniors who are kind of weak,
Oh
weak
yeah,
links in a
I
way,
mean
right?
you could definitely get people who have like I mean you can get like seniors who've never done like a hard surface thing or something, right? Um, so I mean even like using that case, like I mean for me personally, like I try to get like my team working on even like weapons or like throw them like an armored guy every once in a while or something to kind of so then you kind of avoid that like you're the head guy, like you make the best heads, so that's all you're gonna do ever. I mean it might end up being like more heavily weighed that way because like I mean if Hazardous joined my team and we had like a slew of like female characters and I really wanted to like blow the fucking socks off like a publisher, it's like
Mm-hmm.
of course he's gonna do the girls. You know what I mean? Like is you gotta kind of pick it out, but I mean at the same time it's like I don't know. I mean if you kind of got something you want to work on, you kind of got to get thrown a bone every once in a while, right? Versus just becoming stagnant, like plateauing on being the head guy, being this like one thing all the time.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
So I
Yeah,
mean,
totally.
so Troy, if you want to make me a few ladies,
Yeah, man. Just line them up, man. I'll knock them down.
that's how we do it.
Yeah.
But
Hey, so
you know what?
I actually had a question that
Yeah.
I was kind of keen to get your guys' thoughts on, and that was about taking like sabbaticals, and whether or not you guys have had or worked with team members that have just kind of like basically gone, hey, you know what? I'm heading out of here for like 4, 5, 6 months, man. I'll see you then. And whether or not the companies that you work for kind of like look favorably upon that, and whether you guys think that does it affect your job prospects in the future if there's like these big ass gaps in your resume of like 6 months of just fucking being marooned on an island somewhere, you know what I mean? Just kind of like chilling out and gathering your thoughts.
Yeah,
Well,
I mean,
oh,
go for it, dude.
okay. Well, one of the things, like I mentioned before, one of the things we have in Canada, uh, Quebec particularly, is they have uh, 12, 12 months off shared between the male and the female for a maternity leave or a paternity leave. So they get to every time there's a sorry when they have a kid, they get 12 months off, and our new prime minister is actually pushing for 18 months. So, and that's split
That's amazing.
between the man and the woman however they want. So if the guy wants to leave for 6 months and give the girl a year, that or you know they get to. If, you know what? There's been a like I mean IDOS is a much older studio. Like there's a lot of kind of guys in their late 30s, early 40s, or and there are quite a few paternity leaves, and the job is there when they get back. Um, like I don't think I've never heard of anyone getting fired over it.
Hmm.
The closest thing I saw was Sebastien Legrain took a paternity leave, and it wasn't for very long either. But when he came back, rather than kind of be the lead of Deus Ex, he became the lead of Tomb Raider.
Hmm.
Oh well.
So there was just kind of that sort of thing. Like he missed too much of a significant amount of a gap where he couldn't fill that in.
Hmm.
So, so we needed to hand it off like quickly to somebody else because it was like a lot of critical deadlines are coming up and a lot of so and there was like I think it's a testament to the studio you work for where if they value that or if they I mean this is from me, Mr. Canadian socialist government thing, right? So I don't know how it works necessarily in the States, but here it's very it's kind of acceptable. It's actually kind of normal, and it hasn't, from what I can tell, hasn't really affected too many careers. You might want to ask the females, like, but
Hmm.
like from my perspective, it hasn't really deterred anyone at the office from having kids or whatever.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it might be a different story the other way around. But I mean, uh, I don't know. I mean, for me, I don't think I really know, or I can't recall anyone that has taken like an actual sabbatical, like still employed with the company, taking time off, and then like coming back to the company. I mean, obviously, when I was in like Canada, there's like paternity leave for or maternity leave, and yeah, I mean that worked out just fine. It kind of obviously it's a long ways away. I mean, it's like 9 months in the future, and you can kind of plan around it. Um, for someone who's like, I mean, I don't know. I mean, I guess I like the risk of sounding ignorant to it or whatever, but I guess someone who's just had enough of it and wants to like go away, you know what I mean, or is like on the verge of like losing their shit or something and just wants to, walk into the wilderness and never come back or something. Um, I mean, I don't know anybody like that or anything like that that's happened. I mean, for me, I mean, I've quit jobs that I felt I wasn't excelling fast enough and like wanted to like work on my own stuff for like a few months and kind of get like force myself into like revamping my portfolio or like getting a new job or whatever, right? And like just didn't want to stay there anymore. But I mean, I don't think it ever really looked poorly like on my like resume, like having like a few months gap or whatever. Um, well, at the same time, I'm not sure it's like the best advice to give, you know?
Yeah, I think here it's only something that I've kind of recently kind of got used to or seen because we had one guy at Tryon that that had a kid and he took a few months off I think and he came back afterwards and straight back into his job and there seemed to be no damage done of
Hmm.
any kind. But at Weta, it's quite common based on what I hear is because. But I think it's because of a different reason, man, and especially from like all the people working on film,
Hmm.
man, when that shit hits the fan, it's just like, dudes, we have got to go on this, man. It's like, it's all paid overtime and everything, but I mean, it's you can really put in some serious fucking hours and 7 days a week kind of stuff, and it's just relentless for like it could be 6 months, it could be a 6 months block of time where you have no life and you are just literally working just a phenomenal amount of hours, and then at the end of it everyone's just like fucking bye man, see you next year, you know what I mean?
Hmm.
Like they're literally gone, and it's almost expected, it's almost like, yep, just get out of here, man. Like you've done your thing, like just come back when you've had a bit of a breather and we get to do it all over again. So I
Hmm.
guess it's kind of a different way of working because you almost work your ass off and you will earn like a year's salary or maybe more in
Hmm.
in in anywhere from like 5 to 6 months time. And it's kind of like, I guess, in a way it balances itself out. Instead of like cruising along for 40 or 50 hours a week, you work your butt off for like 6 months of the year, and then you just chill out for 6 months of the year. So I kind of just I've only kind of been introduced to that as I've started here at Weta. So and it's kind of an interesting thing, I think,
Hmm.
but
Yeah,
it's
it's cool.
definitely accepted here.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's good to. I mean, have you guys worked at companies that give you, um, like I guess post project like vacation pay, like time off? You know what I mean? Like when I was working on like BioShock, and that finished, I got like a month of time where
Oh,
I just kind of like went away for a month, and it's like paid vacation, doesn't go against like your normal vacation. It's just kind of you know I mean, I guess it would be like a gift, but I mean, on the flip side, it's like, I crunched for like 2 years. So, it's kind of like, I mean, it's like definitely, it's better than like some places I've been for sure. So, I mean, it was kind of,
Mm,
for me, it was like, it was fine. And I mean, crunching is probably like a totally different conversation. But it's not like it was like I resentfully took it or whatever. But um, I mean, is that common for you guys? Like, have you experienced that before, where it's not necessarily a sabbatical? It's kind of like you know, you guys just busted your ass, so here's like some extra time off. Just go away and you know relax.
Well, IDOS and even like the company before Funcom and just another ones, they just you bill them banked hours. Like when you work overtime, you just write it in your timesheets that you worked overtime, and at the very end of the project, it's like take that time off. And so
Hmm.
for some of the guys who were like, especially the lead environment artists, like they worked. I think they had like 2 months of crunch time build.
Hmm.
They just got 2 months off. It's one for one, which is a lot better than a lot of the other studios I've worked at. But that was pretty amazing.
Hmm. Yeah, it sounds like a pretty good deal.
Mhm.
Yeah, fuck. I remember when I was at Tryon, man, we were crunching pretty hard towards the end for the launch of Rift, and yeah, I mean, I'm sure we all kind of accrued a massive amount of time, but it was just like, hey, so I know that yesterday we launched the game, but there was a big push, and we were all there until like fucking 1 a.m. or whatever. But today's a new day. We've got a new deadline. Let's
Yeah.
go. And it was just
Well,
Oh
fucking,
boy.
you
you've
just
got
rolled
like,
straight.
dude, I can only imagine like an MMO must
Oh
just
man.
never end, dude. Like for me, like I um like and I guess this would probably be not a common opinion, but I kind of like crunch, and I like when there's like a common yeah, I know, and there's like a common like goal, and you're all like working towards it and whatever, right? I mean, obviously, things could be organized or managed in a way that wouldn't have to happen, and you could just do it anyway, and then go home at a normal time and see your kids and shit. But I mean, I kind of like uh fuck, I can't remember where I was going with this, but I kind of like that aspect of it, and like kind of the I guess like the trajectory of like a console project where like it's a few years. Here's your pre-pro. There's like the meat of the project. Now like everything's on fire and you're done and take a little break and then do it all over again. Versus like I can only imagine that like an MMO must be like you're working. Hey, all right, we gotta fucking get the core game out. Hey, it's done. All right, now we need more stuff to like support the rest of the game. So like new characters and like expansion packs and stuff like that, right?
I find
Yeah.
crunch is weird because it's different per studio,
Mhm.
um, or different per project even.
Mhm.
Uh, I find that like there's a lot of like Google kind of pioneered this new technique that I believe is getting massive adoption, which is the passive crunch culture, where they basically make the studio feel like a country club.
Mhm.
They've got beer on tap, they've got pizzas ordered, they got the game on, like and
Mhm.
people just stay there all the time. They get used to like culturally, just everyone's there till like 9 o'clock because it's like, hanging out, right? And
Mhm.
they're doing some work. Um, I also think that there's like the only time I think crunch is really resented is when, for artists anyway, is like when you have those art directors that always ask for changes no matter how
Mhm.
good something is. It's sort of like change this, change this, change
Mhm.
this, like, and it's just like this steady stream. Like, what are you crunching for? You're crunching so that you can make something look different
Yeah.
incrementally, And I think
Oh
those are
yeah.
those are the resentful crunches. But
Oh.
when people are working towards the same goal and we're all kind of working on something you think is really cool and
Mhm.
uh, I don't. I think that gets a bit easier.
Oh, it's for me totally, dude. Like that's the difference for me between I mean like good crunch and bad crunch, I suppose. Like there's definitely bad crunch. And like if your immediate reaction to having like too much work is to just make people work more, that's fucking bullshit. Like the answer should be expanding your team, reducing scope. There should be ways like around this first, and like that shouldn't be like your first option. And I mean, I've had crunches that, like the entire it was like mandatory. The entire team busted ass
Yeah.
you know, on something for months, and then it gets presented, it fails, everyone feels like shit, and like, they feel like they just kind of wasted, like all their time for nothing, right? But I've also had like crunches where it lasted way longer, but everyone knew at the end of the day, like the end of the, you know, the marathon, I suppose, that that the end product was going to be amazing, right? So there's a huge difference, man. There's a difference between like this mandatory um, blanket crunch for no reason versus like, you know, everyone realizes what's at stake and everyone's totally on board and everyone likes it and you know it just kind of happens, right?
You know what's kind of funny about that is, and I find that for artists especially, it's a very self-inflicted thing,
Hmm.
where you know it's sort of like, okay, well, we're gonna cut this character unless you can do it in like a week,
Yeah.
and it's like, and you've been itching to make this character for like months, like you were just drooling at the concept art, and you're like, no, this shit's getting done, right? Like,
Hmm.
there's a bit of that, but I find that artists are very like kind of Dunning-Kruger effect, the entire imposter syndrome thing. We don't want to be the weak link on the team, like
Hmm.
that's you don't want to be the guy that like delivers all the shit work and breaks the bill. You don't want to be that guy. So in a lot of ways, it's sort of like, well, I'm sitting next to these other superstars. I gotta kind of keep up with them, and the only way I'm gonna do this is putting some extra hours, and they probably feel the exact same way. And
Hmm.
I find that like I remember, what was it, the guy from Epic Games? Was it Mike Caps? He said something about like how people at Epic Games love crunch. Well, a lot of them actually enjoy the crunch, and or something to that effect. And just
Hmm.
all of these like groups were saying, how dare you? Crunch is always bad, 100% of the time. Like and you know what? Artists, like, if we're not we're gonna work on whatever we think is really cool,
Hmm.
and if not, we're just going to go home and work on our own stuff anyway, right? So
Yeah.
if you're working on something really cool at the office, you're just going to sacrifice the cool thing you were going to do at home anyway to do this cool thing at work, right? And you can
Yeah.
call it crunch. I mean, for me, that's a bit of a gray area, but
Yeah.
Hmm.
you can call that crunch. I mean, I guess it is crunch in terms of that, but like artists are not going to be fighting that
Yeah.
much.
I mean, I think there's I mean, there's kind of like the idea of like crunch is like always avoidable, and I don't know if that's necessarily true, especially like in games, because at least in my experience, it's like this organic beast. You know what I mean? Like this thing is taking like form over like the course of years. Like things are changing, like new features are going in. Like some designer will like throw something in the game as like a test and it turns out to be fucking amazing and now all of a sudden it's like a big feature and like you have to support it because like you got to make it look good and I mean you want the game to do really well, right? So I think it's kind of um I guess like ignorant to like think that you can sit down like 3 to like 5 years before like a game is done and then just plot out everything that will ever happen and then just be like, yep, that's how that's gonna work. You know what I mean? And
You
then
know,
just like assume it like all falls into place.
I think it depends on the project. Like, I mean, it's so hard to blanket generalize like that for me because, like, I've been on project. Like, I mean, when I was at Neversoft, like, they're just on a timeline. They're shipping Tony Hawk every year, right? And now
Hmm.
they're then became Guitar Hero every year, and just for something like that, if you're working on like kind of a sequel,
Hmm.
it's easier to plan because you've been through it before, right?
Hmm.
And they had their crunch planned, and it wasn't grueling by any means, and it was
Hmm.
just sort of like, guys, last week of every month we're going to work 12 hours a day from Monday to Thursday, and I thought that was a great system. And they tell
Hmm.
you this right at the front, so like you can't complain about the crunch culture there because like they tell you, right,
Hmm.
up front. Um, I think that was a pretty good system. I think there are ways that you can make it easier. Like, I mean, if you're, geez, I mean, over at Behavior, there was a lot of like children's licenses being worked on, and in a lot
Hmm.
of cases, I, the quality bar isn't the same thing as it was on like Bioshock Infinite. But
Hmm.
I mean, do you really want to crunch on Hannah Montana? Do you really want to crunch
Oh
on,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like,
dude. Like, and I've like had the exact like polar opposites like in my career, right? Like, I mean, I started crunching my very first job like painting like shoes for like a Beyonce game and like painting like Scrabble tiles and shit like that. It's like, man, I don't give a fuck. Like, I don't care at all about this, but like I have to because it has to get done. I'm the only artist. Like, there's only so much time, and like I have to, versus like Infinite where dude, like I wanted that game to do as like well as it did. You know what I mean? Like I fucking dreamed of working on that project. So, I mean, I would have done it anyway. You know what I mean? It's like it kind of is like this, like you're saying, like this self-inflicted thing, and I don't know. I mean, it's definitely different, right? I mean, the I mean, caliber of like work that you're doing, like what you actually are personally getting out of it makes a difference. Like, I mean, I mean, it's just yeah. I mean, even if I did make like a blanket statement, it's like obviously not. That's not true because I mean, there's some things that like I'm sure EA Sports must have some crunch, but it's pretty predictable. I mean,
Yeah.
you've made like 20 Maddens by now. You know what's going on. Um, versus like something that's like maybe a new IP or like a really like ambitious like you know whatever like open world sequel or something. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I don't know, comparing like Arkham Knight to like Madden 25 or something.
I
But
think I mean a lot of these kind of generalizations about crunch it really it depends on the culture of the studio, right? Like a lot the thing I think we can appreciate is the honesty. I think
mhm,
up front they say, hey, you know what, we're going to be crunching a bit on this thing, like we're nearing a deadline, and our studio is okay with this.
mhm,
Like, if they sell you on that and you take the job, as far as I'm concerned, that's on you. You can't do
mhm,
anything about it. But there's a lot of like other opportunities out there that are like we completely respect work-life balance. So we're
mhm,
going to kick you out the door at 5 or kick you out the door at 6, right? Maybe not that extreme, but you know, no one else is going to be around at 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock. So just go, right? Like,
mhm,
and there's kind of a bit of a correlation between the ambition of the projects and that sort of culture.
mhm,
And I mean, yeah, you can leave at 5, but I mean, if you're shipping, game of the year candidate, right? Like, do
mhm.
you really want to be the guy that goes home at 5? And I think that's maybe a lot of where the senior artists are starting to burn out. Like, they have kids, they have families, and they kind of that doesn't really like working on the next greatest game of the year isn't really their driving passion anymore.
Mhm.
Um, so I don't know. As long as the studios I find are upfront about kind of the culture of the team, I
Mhm.
think it's fair. Like I've had interviews where I go in and they just the first question is how do you feel about crunch? It's like because we do hundreds of hours a week, like kind of thing.
Mhm.
And that's obviously not for me, but there are some people that would kill to work on these games, and
Yeah.
it is. Well, I don't know whether that's fair or not. I like most people would say no,
Mhm.
but some people just really want that on their resume. Some people really want that.
Mhm.
Should we stop
Uh,
working them yet? I don't know.
yeah. I mean, for me too. I mean, I think it's, and I know this is like borderline like an unhealthy opinion, but I mean, this is like my dream. You know what I mean? Like this is what I want to do, and like I don't know. Like it's almost like I owe it to myself to give as much as I can to the project. You know what I mean? I mean, the flip side of it is it's a job, and you can still create stuff on your own, right? But at the end of the day, like my personal stuff probably isn't going to get game of the year. You know what I mean? Like I I could like benefit more out of like putting more time into a multi-million-dollar project versus I don't know, whatever weird fucking shit I'd be sculpting at home. You know what I mean? Um,
Mm.
but yeah, it's a weird, man. It's a touchy subject 'cause it does kind of get into this like
The comment section of this, by the way, is going to be like everybody's going to be railing on us for having
yeah,
these
yeah,
opinions,
yeah,
right?
yeah. I'm afraid that I'm like generalizing too much. I think I said that like you could do a rig in a day, and some guy got super pissed. So I don't know, man. Maybe we're entering the age now where people care enough that they'll fucking start railing on us in the comments.
Well, like I said, it's a part of the culture of the studio. Like, if you're not really into crunching at all, go to a studio that values the work-life balance. Like there's
Mhm,
plenty of them out there. There are. They may not necessarily work on the. I mean, maybe a lot of them do. I don't know, but from what I've seen, the ones that really do don't really work on game of the year stuff. But you know what? They work on some cool stuff here and there, and
mhm,
who knows? Like, I don't know. I mean, Behavior Interactive, like they've worked on like a lot of mobile stuff, a lot of children's licenses, and a lot of like they helped on Fallout 4, and that's a studio that definitely values work-life balance. But
mhm.
maybe it's because they're based in Montreal, and the salary subsidies are kind of insane here that it's still cheaper to kind of go to a studio like Behavior to make this content for Fallout 4, and I don't
Mhm.
know.
I don't know, man. It's kind of a weird subject, right? 'Cause, I mean, it it's just not as like black and white. You know what I mean? There's like a lot of different things. I mean, there's like the type of game you want to make. There's different people's uh, definition of what healthy work-life balance is. You know what I mean? Like there's a lot of circumstances that would make it like terrible and make it totally fine. You know what I mean? So yeah, I don't know. It's not. I don't know. It's like almost like on one side is like fucking fascist regime of people making you work until you're dead, and then on the other side is like uh, crazy socialist. Everything's fine. Only work 5 hours a day for 3 days a week, kind of thing, right? And
What
I
I
don't
find
know, man.
what I find interesting is like we did a lot of crunch on Thief.
Hmm.
It was compensated, so like I didn't we didn't feel so bad about it.
Hmm.
But what was funny was like I can't speak for the reviews of the game; they're not great. But the
Hmm.
art team was very proud of what we accomplished, kind of being a like a cross generation game, and like all the artists on the team, like we loved working on that project. It was like
Hmm.
Victorian era thing, tons of
Well,
awesome
dude,
visuals.
and Thief is like a franchise, man. I mean, a lot of you guys probably played that, like,
Yeah.
when you're like in your earlier years or whatever, right?
Yep.
For us, the art team though, like we stuck together and but by the time that game ended, right? We like all the leads on that game, like all the leads on that title were kind of like when we got shuffled off to other projects, or like almost all of us were offered a position, and all of
Hmm.
us were like, dude, we're so burned out. We don't want to lead this thing anymore, right? Like it's like we gave it our all. That was it. We left it all on the table. We don't really have much in the tank right now, so if we could just kind of take on a bit more of a supporting role and have good leadership, we'd rather that. Because I mean, the way that we kind of rely, like IDOS relies on the leads to kind of just be the responsible for the everything essentially. So the leads don't necessarily want to concede too much stuff. They want to kind of get the most out. And in the end, it's sort of like, well, I guess this is all on me. I have to do this, right? And so you put in the extra hours to kind of get everything that you want done. And
Hmm.
like, yeah, there was a lot of burnouts, but I mean, we took our month off or 2 months off. We came back and we were just kind of easing back into the routine of things again. So that was, I mean, I can't imagine another way of doing it.
Hmm.
And of course, that was kind of one of those development cycles that went on a bit too long. So a lot of people were very burned out on that, right? So especially the guys that were around from the beginning, like they worked on it for 6 or 7 years.
Oh wow, yeah,
Yeah.
it's crazy.
Like I said, every crunch is different to different people, to different studios, to different situations, to different passions, and so it's like not one. You can't say it's all bad if everyone likes it. So.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely think like the transparency thing, like you're mentioning, is kind of key, because if you know like what you're getting yourself into, or if there's like the end goal is made clear versus just like, well, we got to get something done or whatever. You know what I mean? Like just kind of a weird, obscure deadline that you're hitting that you're not really sure what point you're trying to prove. You know what I mean? I think that makes a huge difference, right? Like if you know if you just know what's going on versus like I don't know, you're just kind of being told to do it and you end up doing it and then you're told that you're like a failure or something. You know what I mean? It's like, well, oh, okay, like that's kind of shitty. Um, yeah, crazy man. Well, I think I mean, unless you guys have like something else you wanted to bring up, I mean, I think we're almost at like 2 hours here, so
Well, I actually have one thing I kind of wanted to sort of bring up.
sure.
This was maybe where are all the senior, going back to what we were talking about, where were all the seniors?
Hmm.
Maybe they might be out there, but because there's no dominance war to really discover them,
Hmm.
like I find that like the dominance war, say what you will about the game artisans or whatever, that like the lack of dominance war created a huge void where I don't know how many senior artists that we discovered, like kind of in our polycount bubble,
Hmm.
just from this thing. Like if it wasn't for that, we would never know who
Yeah,
well,
dude.
like
Yeah, I mean, I would like, I would definitely agree with that, like on some level. I mean, even with like, I mean, we talked before, like with forums kind of changing how,
mhm,
from like what they used to be back when, like when we were getting started, to now. I mean, even with like even social media, which is like, I usually use like Twitter to like show my work and stuff, but um, even then it's just kind of this giant ocean of
Mhm.
people that you don't know. You know what I mean? And it's just kind of every once in a while something nice will come up from like ArtStation or something. You're like, oh, cool. But then like you never really have a way of looking at the guy's like development and stuff like that. But with Dominance War, man, like it introduced like a lot of people to each other. You know what I mean? Like I mean, I wouldn't have known who Kite was without Dominance War, right? And fuck, man, I think probably even like me and like Hazard has probably met through that. You know what I mean? So
Mhm.
it's uh it's kind of like crazy like how you get exposed in that way. But yeah, I mean, do you think if like let's so if there was like something that was like a dominance war now, I mean, do you feel that like uh I guess the cream would rise to the top, so to speak, or do you feel that like they're so far gone that they wouldn't really enter, right? Because I mean, now if you made like Dominance War 8 or whatever it's up to, and you tried pulling in people, I mean, I doubt like Bobo's gonna join or like Kite or anything like that, right?
But
So,
these guys are all established, right? Like you're talking about very
mhm,
established guys that don't necessarily need to have anything to like. Bobo doesn't need to work on his rep. Like he's a legend, you know.
mhm, yeah.
Uh,
So, I mean, do you think that like this would kind of introduce like the next,
Possibly.
that next wave, I suppose?
I think so. Like I definitely think so. Like I know a lot of guys who are kind of itching at the part to get in there. It,
Hmm.
it, it is kind of funny though because there was a time like I guess when we joined Polycount, it was just ruthless. You post something up there, and you're just gonna get stripped, you know.
Hmm.
And you kind of expected it, and you reveled in it, and you gave it back, right? And
Hmm.
uh, the funny thing is because there's I guess Polycount announced that they had like 1 million members in that recently or
Hmm.
something obscene like that. It's just you see this piece posted and it just kind of just drops like a brick and no responses. But it kind of goes both ways. Like something I tell my students in this regard is they need to like they need to work on their exposure. Like they need to start
Hmm.
getting in like on the ground floor and start posting on Polycount, giving feedback to people, posting links, and like just be more active because the thing they don't want to do is graduate from school and then not get any job offers and then start trying to build their reputation after already graduating, right?
Hmm.
Like we've had a couple of students. One of them is now at Bungie, who got the weekly recap. Even like Ben Bolton and Tabor, I guess they got
Hmm.
like they were featured on the weekly recap as students, and their student work got there. They got jobs immediately right after school,
Hmm.
like, and that's what you want. The thing about Dominance War is it was a great exposure tool for a lot. Like it was a very high profile thing because it involved all the other communities. Um, there's no kind of avenue for exposure anymore. It's not, it's well, at least it's a lot harder because
Hmm.
you can't really there's no contest right now. Like I guess the last one was Dominance War and Brawl kind of happening at the same time.
Hmm.
And that was what 5 years ago. I mean, there have
Yeah.
been contests since. You guys are running that thing on Facebook as well, but it doesn't quite have the same draw as like the communities, like the Poly Count, the 3D Total, and
Yeah.
the CG Hub, or the Korean ones and the Chinese and Russian ones. Like those ones were like having that unified kind of global exposure did wonders for so many people's careers, right?
Hmm.
I mean,
Yeah. I
you
mean, even
guys.
like Ryan was saying that like it even helped people get like their visas and stuff. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Hmm. And I think it's harder to get exposure now because of the signal to noise ratio.
Hmm.
It's really tough to kind of get discovered. So there might be a sea of senior character artists out there that we just don't know about
Hmm.
because the exposure is so hard to come by now.
Hmm.
I
Well,
think
yeah.
we
I
kind
mean,
of
like,
got in lucky. Like we kind of got in at that almost the ground floor. So our
yeah,
work
totally. I
portfolio
mean,
4 years.
yeah, I mean, I think like the community is like definitely. I mean, I feel like it's definitely not as like tightly knit as it used to be. So like, kind of like the bigger it gets. I mean, I guess like the more watered down it becomes in a way. Like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's just so many people like posting stuff. It's hard to really pick out like who's like leaps and bounds better than other people. At least for me. Like, I remember like back in the day, it seemed like almost everybody was posting crazy shit. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
and I don't know. It's just it's just like so many people, like much more people now, right? Like it's just become way more popular, so
Mhm.
it's it's harder to get that type of exposure or get like noticed or whatever.
I guess one of the other things is like I find that a lot of going back to the students, a lot of students they don't necessarily know what they want in high school. They get to college and like I don't know what I want to do. I
Hmm.
guess like going to this game art thing, even though I've never drawn anything, I've never shown any inclination towards art.
Hmm.
There's actually a surprising number of these guys who are kind of just the first art piece of art they ever made was actually in college, and
Hmm.
and then they're kind of in for a rude awakening because there's a lot of these fundamentals are missing from their skills.
Hmm.
Um, I guess kind of I don't know. It's a like going back even where we were before and earlier in the conversation. There's a wide range of skills they need to cover to kind of get to where they want to go, and it's constantly increasing, right? Like
Hmm.
year after year, there's just new tech, new methods of doing things, and uh, I guess the thing about the dominance war that was really cool was you found out people were doing things better than you, and you got to
Hmm.
incorporate what they were doing, right? And now it's just hard to find, I don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember, like I said, when I saw Vadim's Dominance War 3 thing, that was just like, I had to know how to do that. I had to learn how to do that because that was so far beyond where I was. Then I got to see, what Kite was doing with textures, and like, I need to get to that level, and or at least
Hmm.
not be embarrassed completely by his level.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely like a level of like friendly competition. You know what I mean? That
Hmm.
like, I mean, during like dominance war and stuff, like you'd want to be like as good like or like better than like the next guy or whatever, right? So, I mean, even though it's not like you're hounding them and stuff like that, but it's like you can just immediately see someone like doing something, and you're like, fuck,
Hmm.
man, like I've got to learn how to sculpt cloth better or something like that, or like I really need to, you know, rethink like my like proportions or like my like level of detail and stuff like
Hmm.
that, and yeah, that's I kind of feel like that's gone in a way, right? Like it's maybe this like big gap in the middle where like you have there's like a lot of like new stuff, and then like most of us probably see the same top row at like ArtStation or Zebra Central or something, but then like in the like that next wave, like I'm not even really sure where it is. You know what I mean?
Mhm. I think just the coming across exposure now is just it's about as tough as it is in other fields now. Like I mean, how do you become a known musician, right? Like
Hmm.
it's hard to get discovered as a musician, and I mean they have decades of experience of trying to get exposure, and I
Hmm.
think we're starting to come across that age where artists are now discovering that like getting discovered, I guess, is a
Hmm.
very difficult task on its own, or just developing a reputation, developing, being known for something. That's really difficult, right?
Hmm. Yeah, totally.
Mhm.
Well, I mean, I don't know. I think that's all I've got, man.
Yeah.
I got to get my tie on here soon and go to my company's holiday party.
Oh, nice,
Yeah, yeah.
nice.
Now we've got karaoke, so I'm torn between Black Sabbath War Pigs and Danzig Mother. And I don't know. It's
Oh,
gonna.
do it like Mike Patton did with Faith No More.
Yeah, yeah,
He's got the definitive version of War Pigs for me personally.
yeah, man, for sure. I'm gonna have to work on my vocal range a little bit, but we'll get there.
Yeah. It's really
Hopefully,
funny because I've
someone's
been
got a
enjoying
recording.
this
Yeah.
scotch while talking to you guys, and I realized, man, these podcasts really just do feel like I'm sitting around with you, sharing a beer, talking shit.
Yeah, I mean that's the hope, man. So,
Yeah.
but dude, it's been great having you with us, man. I mean, I haven't talked to you in a while, so it was great to catch up for sure.
Yeah, right on. And it's finally nice to hear Troy's voice. Like I had no idea how Australian he was.
Yeah.
No,
Oh
seriously,
man.
I see your name up on Skype. I'm like, oh yeah, this guy totally speaks like North
Hmm.
American English, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
The thing is now, man, now that you've heard it once, it's just always going to be in your head,
Yeah.
you know? You're going to be like hearing this in your dreams.
Hopefully, much more.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, totally. All right, guys. Well, yeah, it's been great talking to you.
Yeah, take
Cool.
care, guys.
All right, man. Take it easy.